The great conclave of Xylos buzzed with an anxious energy, a dissonant hum that vibrated through the multifaceted crystal walls of the chamber. Representatives from 1,000 star systems, each a luminescent projection flickering above their designated platform, shifted nervously in the oppressive silence. Grand Prolocutor, a being of immense psychic resonance whose physical form was obscured within a shimmering energy field, finally broke the tension with a voice that echoed across the vast space, a symphony of modulated thought waves. The situation remains unclear. Initial assessments were demonstrably flawed. A ripple of discomfort spread through the assembled delegates. Flawed was a gross understatement. The initial assessments had been disastrously, almost fatally wrong. They had underestimated the humans. Terribly, for cycles, the Zalosian hegemony, the dominant power in this spiral arm, had observed humanity with a detached, almost academic interest. Their primitive warp technology, their fragmented political landscape, their emotional volatility, all had painted a picture of a species far from posing any credible threat. The hegemony, accustomed to the measured calculus of logic and the cold efficiency of technological superiority, had viewed humanity as a curiosity, a footnote in the grand tapestry of the cosmos. Then came the disastrous First Contact Initiative. It had been conceived as a swift, surgical intervention, a show of force designed to bring humanity under the hegemony's benevolent, if somewhat autocratic, guidance. A small fleet composed of what were considered obsolete, but still formidable warships had been dispatched to the Sol system. The mission, to establish a blockade, demonstrate overwhelming power, and then offer humanity a choice, compliance or oblivion. The expectation was swift capitulation. Humanity, faced with such overwhelming superiority, would logically choose the path of least resistance. Instead, they had chosen defiance. The engagement had lasted less than a standard Zalosian hour. When the shattered remnants of the hegemony fleet limped back through the warp gate, the shockwave of their defeat reverberated across the entire hegemony. The initial reports were dismissed as sensor malfunction. The destruction of an entire battle group by a species that hadn't even mastered controlled fusion was inconceivable. Then came the verification, the cold, hard data confirming the unthinkable. Humanity had not just survived, they had prevailed. And now the hegemony, the undisputed masters of this sector of the galaxy for millennia, were facing a crisis of unprecedented scale. The Prolocutor continued, his voice resonating with a barely concealed apprehension. The so-called distress call, its origins remain unknown. The analysis suggests a sophisticated form of mimicry, a falsification of our own communications protocols. But by whom, and for what purpose? He paused, allowing the question to hang heavy in the air. The distress call, a garbled message purportedly originating from a remote hegemony mining outpost near the Sol system, had claimed a catastrophic failure of the atmospheric regulators, a colony on the verge of asphyxiation. It was a standard hegemony disaster protocol that any distress call must be answered, regardless of strategic considerations. It was a weakness, a vulnerability built into their rigid code of honor. Humanity had exploited it flawlessly. The representative from the Krill Confederacy, a pragmatic species known for their ruthless efficiency, hissed through their bioluminescent mandibles. Perhaps a rogue element within our own ranks, a faction seeking to destabilize the hegemony, or another power seeking to exploit the situation. The Krill had long resented the hegemony's dominance, chafing under their restrictive trade policies and their stifling control of warp gate technology. They were opportunistic, always seeking an advantage. The Prolocutor considered the suggestion. A possibility, yes, but the sophistication of the mimicry suggests a technological capability far beyond anything the Krill possess. And while there are other powers in this galaxy capable of such deception, none would risk provoking the hegemony so directly. He paused again, his energy field flickering with a nervous energy. Which leaves us with the most unsettling possibility, that the humans themselves were responsible. A collective gasp rippled through the conclave. The very idea was preposterous. Humanity, a species barely out of their cradle, orchestrating such a complex deception. It was an insult to their intelligence, a challenge to their very understanding of the galactic order. The representative from the sentient plant-based civilization of the Sylvans, their voices a chorus of rustling leaves and clicking branches, offered a dissenting opinion. We have observed their creativity, their capacity for innovation, their willingness to embrace unconventional strategies. Perhaps we have underestimated them. Perhaps their primitiveness is merely a mask, a veil concealing a deeper, more dangerous potential. The Sylvans, with their centuries-long lifespans and their profound connection to the natural world, often possessed a unique perspective on galactic affairs, an ability to see patterns that others missed. The prolocutor nodded slowly. A valid point, Sylvan Elder, but the question remains, why? Why would humanity provoke the hegemony in such a reckless manner? What could they possibly hope to gain? The hegemony possessed overwhelming military superiority. Their technology was centuries ahead of humanity's. Their economy dwarfed the entire Sol system. What possible motivation could humanity have for initiating a conflict that they could not possibly win? The representative from the insected race of the Qtar, their chitinous bodies clicking and whirring as they processed the information, offered a chilling possibility. Perhaps they are not playing to win. Perhaps they are playing to survive. Perhaps they perceive us as a threat to their very existence. And perhaps they believe that the only way to ensure their survival is to strike first to destabilize the hegemony, to sow chaos and discord among our ranks. The Qtar, with their hive-mind mentality and their ruthless pragmatism, understood the calculus of survival perhaps better than any other species in the galaxy. The prolocutor felt a cold shiver run through his energy field. The Qtar's suggestion was unsettlingly plausible. Humanity, with their limited resources and their inherent vulnerability, might indeed perceive the hegemony as an existential threat. And if they believed that their only chance of survival was to strike first, then their reckless aggression, their seemingly irrational defiance, suddenly made a terrifying kind of sense. The silence in the conclave chamber deepened, broken only by the faint hum of the life support systems and the nervous fidgeting of the delegates. The truth was slowly dawning on them. They had made a colossal mistake. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were paying the price. The prolocutor turned his attention to the holographic projection of the Sol system, a tiny speck of light in the vast darkness of space. He knew that the fate of the hegemony, perhaps even the fate of the entire galaxy, might depend on what happened next. "Prepare a diplomatic envoy," he announced, his voice resonating with a newfound respect and a sliver of fear. "We will attempt to establish communication. We will seek to understand their intentions." It was a gamble, a desperate attempt to avert a full-scale war. But it was the only option they had left. The hegemony had learned a valuable lesson. Never underestimate a species that is fighting for its survival. Never underestimate humanity. Across the gulf of interstellar space, on the bridge of the asterisk Un's dauntless asterisk, Captain Eva Rostova watched the approaching hegemony vessel with a grim satisfaction. The sleek obsidian ship, a stark contrast to the asterisk Dauntless's asterisk utilitarian design, hung in the void like a predatory shadow. The sensor readings confirmed its diplomatic designation. No visible weapons, no aggressive posture, a tentative olive branch. "They're hailing us, Captain," Lieutenant Commander Kenji Ito announced from the communications station. Rostova nodded. "Patch them through." She straightened her uniform, a subtle gesture of defiance, and composed herself. The weight of responsibility rested heavily on her shoulders. She was the face of humanity, the representative of a species that had just thrown down the gauntlet to one of the most powerful empires in the galaxy. The image of a Zylosian ambassador, a shimmering humanoid figure radiating an aura of cautious diplomacy, materialized on the main view screen. Its voice, translated into perfect English by the asterisk Dauntless's asterisk advanced AI, filled the bridge. "Greetings, representatives of humanity. I am Ambassador Thrax, emissary of the Zylosian hegemony. We come in peace, seeking to establish communication and to understand the events that have transpired." Rostova met the ambassador's gaze without flinching. Her voice, calm and steady, belied the tension she felt inside. "Ambassador Thrax, I am Captain Eva Rostova, commanding officer of the asterisk United Nations starship Dauntless Asterisk. We have been expecting you." She paused, allowing her words to sink in. "The Zylosian hegemony initiated hostilities. We merely responded in kind. We have no desire for further conflict, but we will not hesitate to defend ourselves." Thrax's shimmering form flickered slightly, a subtle indication of surprise. "Initiated hostilities? We believed that our presence in the Sol system was a peaceful gesture, a demonstration of our technological capabilities, an offer of subjugation," Rostova interrupted, her voice hardening. "We are not fools, Ambassador. We saw your fleet for what it was, an invasion force. We will not be bullied. We will not be intimidated. We will not be conquered." She took a deep breath, steeling herself for the next phase of the negotiation. "We are willing to engage in diplomatic discussions, but only on equal terms. We demand respect. We demand recognition of our sovereignty. And we demand a full and unconditional apology for the unprovoked attack on our planet." Thrax remained silent for a long moment, his shimmering form flickering erratically as he processed Rostova's demands. Finally he spoke, his voice tinged with a grudging respect. Your demands are unprecedented, but we are willing to consider them. The hegemony is not without honor. We are willing to acknowledge our misjudgment. We are willing to engage in good faith negotiations. But we also require clarification. We require an explanation for the distress call that lured our fleet into your system, a distress call that appears to have originated from within our own ranks. Rostova nodded slowly. The distress call? Yes, that is a matter that requires clarification, but I assure you, Ambassador, humanity had nothing to do with it. We merely exploited an opportunity that presented itself. She allowed a hint of a smile to creep onto her face. Sometimes, Ambassador, the best defense is a good offense. And sometimes the best way to win a war is to make your enemy believe that they are the ones who started it. The hegemony ambassador, Thrax, struggled to reconcile the human's words with everything he thought he knew about the species. Their military prowess was undeniable, a harsh lesson learned. But this level of strategic deception, of calculated manipulation, it was beyond anything he could have imagined. It spoke to a depth of cunning, a capacity for long-term planning that was truly unnerving. The realization that they had been so thoroughly outmaneuvered that their own protocols had been weaponized against them was a bitter pill to swallow. He thought of the grand conclave, of the fear and uncertainty that now gripped the hegemony. He knew that the balance of power in the galaxy had shifted, and he knew that the future was uncertain. He chose his words carefully. Captain Rostova, I accept your terms. The hegemony is willing to engage in diplomatic negotiations on equal footing. We will offer a formal apology for the misunderstanding that led to the conflict, and we will cooperate fully in the investigation of the distress call. He paused, his shimmering form flickering again. But I must ask you, Captain, if humanity did not originate the distress call, then who did? And why? Rostova's smile widened, a hint of something unsettling flickering in her eyes. That, Ambassador, is a very good question, and it is a question that we are very interested in answering. Perhaps together we can uncover the truth. Perhaps together we can face the threat that lies beyond the stars. She paused, allowing her words to hang in the air. Because believe me, Ambassador, the attack on your fleet was not the beginning of a war between humanity and the Xylosian hegemony. It was merely the opening gambit in a much larger, much more dangerous game. Days turned into weeks as the joint human-Xylosian investigation into the origin of the distress call deepened. Rostova and Thrax, initially wary adversaries, slowly developed a grudging respect for each other. They discovered a shared commitment to truth, a shared desire to protect their respective civilizations from the unknown threat that loomed in the shadows. The investigation led them down a labyrinthine path of encrypted data streams, hidden communication channels, and clandestine meetings between shadowy figures from across the galaxy. They uncovered evidence of a vast conspiracy, a network of spies and saboteurs operating within both the hegemony and human society. The conspiracy, it turned out, was orchestrated by a forgotten species, the remnants of an ancient empire that had once ruled the galaxy with an iron fist. These beings, known only as the Architects, had been driven into hiding millennia ago after a rebellion by their enslaved subjects. They had waited patiently, biding their time, plotting their return to power. The distress call was merely the first step in their plan, a carefully calculated attempt to destabilize the galaxy and pave the way for their resurgence. The Architects possessed a technology far beyond anything the hegemony or humanity had ever encountered. They were masters of genetic engineering, capable of creating biological weapons that could wipe out entire civilizations. They were also masters of mind control, able to manipulate the thoughts and actions of their enemies. Their goal was simple: to re-establish their dominion over the galaxy, to enslave all other species, and to remake the cosmos in their own twisted image. The discovery of the Architect conspiracy sent shockwaves through both the hegemony and human society. Rostova and Thrax realized that they were facing a threat far greater than anything they had ever imagined. They knew that they had to act quickly, to unite their forces, and to confront the Architects before it was too late. In the depths of the hegemony archives, a team of human and Xylosian scientists stumbled upon a series of cryptic data fragments, remnants of the Architect empire. The data revealed a network of ancient megastructures, colossal machines scattered across the galaxy, each designed to fulfill a specific purpose in the Architect's grand scheme. One of these megastructures, located in a remote and unexplored region of space, was identified as the Architect's primary research facility, a place where they conducted their most dangerous experiments. Rostova and Thrax knew that they had to find this research facility, to uncover the secrets of the Architect's technology, and to find a way to defeat them. They assembled a joint fleet, composed of the most advanced warships from both the hegemony and human forces, and set course for the uncharted region of space. As the fleet approached the coordinates of the Architect Research Facility, they encountered a series of strange anomalies, distortions in spacetime that threatened to tear their ships apart. Rostova, relying on her intuition and her years of experience as a starship captain, navigated the fleet through the anomalies, guiding them safely to their destination. The Architect Research Facility was a colossal structure, a sphere of shimmering metal that dwarfed even the largest hegemony warships. It was surrounded by a network of defense satellites, armed with weapons of unimaginable power. The battle for the research facility was fierce and unrelenting. Human and Xylosian pilots fought side by side, their skills and courage pushed to the limit. Rostova, piloting her flagship, the dauntless Asterisk, led the charge, weaving through the enemy defenses, dodging laser fire and missile barrages. Thrax, commanding the hegemony flagship, the Asterisk Xylosian Pride, provided crucial support, using his psychic abilities to disrupt the Architect's targeting systems and to coordinate the efforts of the Allied fleet. Slowly but surely, the Allied forces began to gain the upper hand. They destroyed the defense satellites, breached the outer hull of the research facility, and prepared to launch a boarding party. Rostova and Thrax led the boarding party, venturing into the heart of the Architect facility. They found themselves in a labyrinth of corridors and chambers, filled with strange machinery and grotesque experiments. They encountered Architect drones, mindless automatons programmed to defend the facility at all costs. They fought their way through the drones, their weapons blazing, their determination unwavering. Finally, they reached the central chamber of the facility, a vast space filled with bubbling vats and pulsating energy fields. In the center of the chamber, they found the Architect leader, a grotesque creature with a bulbous head and spindly limbs, surrounded by a cadre of loyal followers. The Architect leader raised its hand, and a wave of psychic energy washed over Rostova and Thrax. They felt their minds being probed, their thoughts being manipulated, their wills being eroded. But they resisted. They drew upon their inner strength, their unwavering belief in their cause, and they fought back. Rostova unleashed a barrage of plasma fire from her rifle, while Thrax unleashed a psychic blast that shattered the Architect leader's mental defenses. The Architect leader screamed in pain and rage. It unleashed its full power, attempting to crush Rostova and Thrax with its psychic might. But they stood their ground, their wills unbroken, their spirits unyielding. They fought with all their strength, all their courage, all their determination. And in the end, they prevailed. Rostova fired a final shot, piercing the Architect leader's heart. The creature collapsed to the ground, dead. With the death of their leader, the remaining Architects surrendered. The threat to the galaxy was over. In the aftermath of the battle, Rostova and Thrax stood side by side, gazing out at the wreckage of the Architect Research Facility. They had faced a terrifying enemy, and they had emerged victorious. They had forged a bond of friendship and trust, a bond that transcended the boundaries of species and culture. They knew that the galaxy would never be the same. The Architect threat had been defeated, but the memory of their existence would forever haunt the cosmos. Rostova turned to Thrax, her eyes filled with a mixture of relief and sadness. "It's over," she said softly. Thrax nodded, his shimmering form flickering slightly. "Yes, it is over. But the galaxy is forever changed. We have seen the darkness that lurks beneath the surface, the ancient evils that threaten to consume us all." He paused, his voice tinged with a newfound wisdom. "We must remain vigilant. We must learn from our mistakes. We must never underestimate the power of fear and hatred." Rostova nodded in agreement. "We must also never underestimate the power of hope and courage. We must never give up on the possibility of a better future. We must strive to build a galaxy where all species can live in peace and harmony." She looked out at the stars, her eyes filled with a newfound determination. "The war may be over, but the work has just begun." Far beyond the galaxy, in the vast and uncharted regions of intergalactic space, an ancient signal pulsed through the void. It was a message from a long-dead civilization, a warning about a cosmic threat that dwarfed even the Architects. The message spoke of a being of unimaginable power, a force of destruction that could consume entire galaxies. The message was faint, barely audible, but it was there, and it was growing stronger. The final line of the message translated with chilling clarity into a single, stark warning: Asterisk, they slumber, but they will awaken, and when they do, all will be consumed. The signal, a cosmic distress call echoing across billions of years, was a prelude to a coming storm, a harbinger of a conflict that would dwarf all others. Humanity, having tasted the fire of interstellar war, now faced the daunting prospect of preparing for a battle against an enemy beyond comprehension, a force that could extinguish the light of entire galaxies. Their alliance with the Zalosian hegemony, forged in the crucible of conflict, was their only hope. The future of the galaxy, perhaps even the universe, rested on their shoulders. The game, it seemed, had only just begun.